us by the trail of dead. It's just one more world war to complete the set. When you live by the pike, you die by the pith. You die wide-eyed, still pleading the fifth, or crying divine epithets and pathetic attempts at defense. All empathetic for those on your side of the fence. Well, I'll gladly put you and your legacy into an alternate tense of faltering senses and altered events. Like hun, it ain't a hearse, it's a reaper's stretch. Ah, how sweet, she said. Bunch of hordes in the street like it's Evil Dead, where the thin blue line meets razor's edge, and where the corporate ladder ascends to a steel-toed boot that awaits on the ledge. You'll be licking it fresh at your boss's request till it stomps each finger and watches you fall to your death and drown in an ocean of debt. Gone with the fodder who gathered to honor the patient left, who purity tested themselves into sections step by step till the next election, when it's just one them and the sound of their well-read theorized breath. That's harm reduction for the lowly cost of you holding your nose and just openly buying the theft. Maybe that's all in the flick of the pen. Maybe we're all one unmarked van from a trip to the pen, being guarded by pigs who exist on a diet of dying breaths of much worthier men. Honey, heaven's expecting you. Just don't get too hung up on who they let in. Just look up at the shine of the pearly gates. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the paint. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the water, lead in the milk, lead in the honey, lead in the caustic embrace of the Heavenly Father. Lead is the flavor of passive perpetual slaughter. Lead is the taste of us led to the ledge by the lure of the legend of expert consensus, and then beckon to stretch it just one step farther. And I hope all the folks who were boastfully gloating and toasting themselves as the heroes of COVID for boosting their boosters and doing their part are now equally thrilled to be starstruck martyrs, all laid in a government grave with anonymous markers, like you're back from the carvers and off to the splicer. You're the very first wave to be slain in the war against Pfizer, that 100 years war against Pfizer. They are thinning the crowd that is striking right now to bleed adequate pay from those inhuman misers, who all sit in their office and designate coffins to people regarded as nothing but profit for Kaiser. Still, the Dems want you nicer. Dems want you softer. Dems want you kinder. Yeah, they all want you graciously starving in silence. You will speak when you're spoken to. Rest of the time, you and all of us peasants are merely depressing statistics neglected in Congress's binders. All bled, bone dry, then fed to the grinder. Our headstones line each step as reminders. That's a lesson in object permanence learned in the furnace by workers consigned to the fire. Workers bled, bone dry, then fed by the fed to the grinder. Fed by the fed to the grinder. Now the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Now the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. And the Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, bleeds you dry, then dines on the dead. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. The Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. one straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsped, and your eyes turn blind to the signs on red. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see it, it's fed. Never your mind, that it grinds your mind, that it grinds yourself, that it bleeds you dry, that it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. That's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive. Kept our enemies close. Wondered why we don't thrive while we're grasping at ghosts. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contracts tossed and they're gone with the tide. And the heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you right. But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip. Till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips. And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes. Because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer. Liberation.
News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
It's Wednesday. What up, dudes? How's everyone doing? It's Iron and News. Me, Reef. With my co-host, as always, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. Care Bear, how are you doing? DC holding up?
Good.
Cool.
Come again?
DC holding up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nope. Sleet and snow, miserableness.
No, it's been, well, cold, warmer today. No rain or sleet, at least this week so far to speak of. But
Nice.
it's winter. I had to get my winter jacket Monday because it was that cold. So it's
Right.
here.
Dope. Dope. People enjoying the intro graphics. Yep. We worked hard on
Yeah.
those.
Let us know in the comments whether you want merch out of the robots, like t-shirts and stuff. I've been asking Reef to at least give me a couple.
Yep.
I
I
can't
have
find
them.
them.
I just have to send them to you. So
Yeah.
they're in
So
they're in a
we'll
thing
probably-
somewhere.
So I can work on that. So actually probably next week will be our last week. Yeah. Our last live episode for the year.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna go on a little break because I'm traveling
Yeah.
and it's Christmas.
Grievous.
So but we'll be back in the year. But yeah, send it to me so then I can at least while I'm home
We'll
kind of
do.
design a couple of things. And maybe we can have it on the website for the new year. But yeah.
Dope.
So
We brought stories. Speaking of
yeah,
Primbus and
we
stuff.
always do.
So
So we're gonna talk about Black Friday. How
why is it gotta be black? Huh? Riddle me
as
this.
in as in
Why is
a
it-
financial term when you have a profit.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
as opposed to the red.
Yes.
So when you have no money. So but kind of going with that, people are like, so mainstream media was like, oh, like it was okay or seemingly good, and that wasn't the case. You guys are smart. Like, and even for me, like I remember you were a little young, but I remember like in the 90s, like when, or even in the early aughts, even in the 2010s, when Black Friday was a big deal. Like
Yeah.
you would stay like long aside, but like maybe hopefully not. But like I remember like there was a friend who at one point I would visit him and his family for at least for a couple of Christmases. Around that time of year, like Thanksgiving. And like part of their tradition was they would go out, like, because that was when they had the money. They saved their money like all year. And I think a lot of people still do, but like they would save their money basically all year to get Christmas gifts. So they would wait outside in the cold. This was in Rhode Island. Like in the wee hours of the morning to get those blockbuster sales they have at the wee hours of the morning. So like I remember kind of doing that shit at least with them. And
Right.
like even like in the 90s, early aughts, you would see like videos of people like getting like buffalo down in the store trying to get like the
elbowed in
1
Target
TV.
for a fucking troll
Right.
doll. Like, yeah, no
Right.
thanks.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of us, especially if you're my age, will remember that. Well, that's not happening anymore.
Nope.
We live in a different age. Everything is mostly online. And as an anecdote, I did go to the mall. It was either Friday or Saturday because I was buying clothes for myself. Because your boy needs clothes because your boy's losing weight and it's cold. So I need new clothes. So I was going to take advantage of the sales anyway. There was nobody at the mall, really. It wasn't busy. Like I was able to go in, get my stuff, and get out, which was great. But so we're going to talk about that in terms of how economy is bad for folks, that people can't even buy holiday gifts. So we're going to get into that first.
Yep.
And then later on, it brings me no pleasure to talk about this woman. But she said some mess at the Doha Forum. I'm sure like there are other people on social media mainstream, not mainstream, independent media who've talked about her and some of the
Pokemon, go
comments
to
she
the
made
polls.
and the comments she made regarding young people in regards to their seemingly misinformation that they're getting regarding what's happening in the Middle East, and kind of doubling down on that in typical Hillary fashion. So we're going to debut, well, very easy to do, but we're going to rebuke all of that tonight in terms of what she said. Most of you may not have seen or heard what she said. Probably you were lucky enough to not. But we are going to talk about her probably and see what she said and how she's wrong, as she usually is. And then you got 3 stories.
Yeah, they're all pretty short. We're gonna talk about this little event that Israel was holding called the Friends of Zion, right? Which, you know, we've talked about Christian Zionism a ton here, and here's, you know, everyone's like favorite shitbag Senator Mike Huckabee. And he attended along with like 1,000 other Christian pastors to this event, and there's some ramifications. So we'll get into it. And then I brought something from Vanessa Beeley over at, she was on UK Column and talked about this. They're like walling in Syria, right? They're like turning it into a cauldron of violence, literally. So, you know, we'll talk a bit about that and the echoes of history that induces. But I also brought a thing on Palantir, everyone's favorite shitty Lord of the Rings reference. And they might have been involved in the pager attack, if you remember that. So yes. We'll talk about that as well. So that's the stories I brought. Yeah, you ready to get started?
I am, but and I see many people in the chat. You guys are not new, so your family. But in case you are, welcome to INN News. And YouTube hates us. And actually, fun fact, they told us again. I did tell you this. They told us Tuesday. You saw,
So, and I'll tell the audience just for them. So, you know, a long time ago, they revoked our monetization status over a video that, you know, was talking about Hamas on October 7th when it happened. And we got branded extremists. And YouTube revoked our monetization. And it's taken them forever to send us anything back on the matter, right? And they essentially said now that you could either appeal if you haven't deleted any videos, which I don't think we have, other than the ones they've removed.
Told us to.
Right. Or we wait till January and we reapply for monetization regardless. Like, even after if we delete videos that might be problematic. So,
who are these people?
Not sure how that's going to work. Hey, Sean, hitting the QR code. Thanks, bud. Appreciate you, fam. But yeah, that's just, you know, full disclosure. That's where YouTube has been at. So, you know, if you want to continue supporting us, you can go to Kodash.com.
Bother to appeal?
I mean, maybe.
You think?
I don't know. Like, if it doesn't hurt to do, like, fine, you know? Like, I doubt they'll even give it to us then, you know?
No.
But if it's just hitting a button, fuck it, you know? We'll see how it goes. But I mean, there's plenty of monetized channels that have said worse than we have, so I don't think it should be an issue, but, you know, whatever. As the Accord Lord said in the chat, YouTube can eat my ass at this point. But which is why you can go to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network to, you know, leave a couple of donations if you so wish.
But benefit is, there is a positive, is that we could say whatever we want, basically. Yes. Well, within reason. Because, you know, we're not playing the algo games in terms of trying to talk about the stories that get the most clicks or whatever. So we can talk about things that we actually do care about and not necessarily what is trending. We can do that sometimes, but that's not our primary focus here. So, but then number two, we know that all the money that we get comes from you guys generally. And the money that you do give us, most of it goes, or pretty much all of it, goes back into the channel. So that being said, if you want to support us financially, and again, as you could see behind me, I got my little Charlie Brown Christmas tree in the back. It is that time of year. We understand you probably are shopping for your families. You're probably trying to take care of your families given the economy right now. So we more than understand, and we're not necessarily doing this for the money. That being said, if you want to support us and able to pay our bills for 2026, and according to Indy, he said we probably need about 3,000 in order to
over the next year.
Yeah, for the next year, just to pay the programs we use, licensing we use, the website Indy uses primarily, just to kind of keep us going. You can scan the QR code if we will pull it up, back up, if you don't mind, if you're on your smartphone, or you can type in the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of your screen. And if you totally forgot to do any of that, thanks, Jax. From
Mexico.
Hola.
Appreciate you, fam.
Gracias.
Everyone being generous at the start of the show. We love you.
But yeah, so Ko-fi link you see at the screen. If you're in the YouTube chat, you can type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up, and anything as little as $1 will help. We are not picky, so we're in a good place generally, and we've been and you guys have been very generous to us, and so we really appreciate it. So anyone who gives at any amount will be shown our Hall of Fame. Our VIPs, the ones who give generously, will have their names highlighted and your names featured in the closing credits.
At some point, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do a big wall of fame. Like maybe animate something.
Yeah,
but
that could be your next project.
And I'm also going to remind me to set up a slide for Patreon as well. I've not done that. And like the monthly donos to Patreon and Substack are like the most helpful thing you could do, giving to us monthly. We appreciate,
Right.
But
just so we're able to get some consistency.
Yeah.
But then, as we said, we are very fortunate that we talk about the stories that we feel deserve to be covered, not necessarily what the algorithm or social media kind of dictates what to cover because it's popular and will get the most views.
Yeah.
So while sometimes we feel that's okay, it's not necessarily the best in terms of a lot of stuff gets lost in the sauce, as they say. So we definitely want to try and cover the stories that people are not necessarily talking about. And you guys have been very receptive to that. So we really appreciate that. And thank you for hanging with us over the almost 4 years now that we've been doing this in order to help us get to this point. So thank you. We love you.
So let's get to our first one.
Yeah. This actually will be kind of short too. So almost 2 Fridays? Yeah, almost 2 Fridays ago was Black Friday.
Yeah.
I talked about it at the beginning. We probably remember, or some of you might have experienced the crowds or the excitement or like the bum rushing of people getting into stores trying to get the doorbuster sales, at least from what I remember as a teen into like my 20s and even my 30s, like through the aughts and 2010s. But with online shopping, and especially right now, given the state of the economy has been, I would argue for over the last decade, Black Friday hasn't really been blacking, as I will say. But, well, in terms of profit,
Right.
So mainstream media tried, and even the Trump administration tried to make you think that it was booming, hence the title. But we're gonna debunk that in a bit.
Okay.
But first, let's watch this CBS News. This is the New York affiliate. Let's see what they have to say. Again,
And
this
what do
was
they-
over Black Friday.
What do they do?
in
Put
terms of what
basic white guy into the AI prompt, and this is what popped out, or is that just me? No, like it's just like standard news anchor. Hit print. Like that's
Sure.
that's all they did. You know.
Sure.
Anyway, I don't know who this gentleman is,
but let's see. Again, this is based in New York, so let's see what they have to say in terms of
Yeah.
Black Friday, and we'll continue with our commentary.
Now that the Thanksgiving feast is behind us, it's time for the post-holiday tradition, shopping on Black Friday. Holiday spending could top $1 trillion for the first time ever, much of that over this 5-day-long weekend. And CBS News correspondent Elaine Quijano is at the American Dream Mall in East Rutherford, New Jersey, where shoppers are on the hunt and retailers are hoping for a big rush. Elaine, good to see you. A belated happy Thanksgiving. How is the turnout there today, and what are you seeing?
You know, it's interesting, Tom. So the doors opened here at American Dream Mall around 7 a.m. And I have to say it was a relatively quiet
appreciate you,
morning. There were
Snorky.
not really any long lines at any of the stores. Also, there were plenty of open parking spaces throughout the morning. As the day has gone on, we've seen some shoppers start to pour in now, but there really weren't any kind of massive crowds to speak of when we first got here. However, as I said, things are picking up now. One of the reasons why it may have been a bit slow this morning is that some people might have been taking advantage of Cyber Week deals. Adobe Analytics, which tracks this kind of data, just came out with some numbers saying that consumers actually spent a record $6.4 billion online this Thanksgiving holiday. So a lot of people deciding maybe to skip the mall and actually do their shopping from the convenience of their own homes. That figure, $6.4 billion online for Thanksgiving, is actually up about 5%, Tom, compared to last year.
Yeah, you know, gone are the days of those stampedes we used to watch, me personally in horror, as people bum rushed these malls. But Elaine, you know, we're living in the digital era. People are very focused on their budgets. You spoke to a retail expert about the best way for shoppers to maximize their budgets this year. What did they tell you?
Yeah, so experts say that basically if you are looking to score a deal, look for anything with a plug. So we are talking deals on appliances and TVs. And then Cyber Monday, you can expect deals on clothing as well as beauty items. Also, they say don't forget to consider loyalty programs and credit cards only if you can pay them off in full, however. And very important for people to make their lists and make sure they are informed about prices and products before they head into the stores. Take a listen.
The biggest thing is do your research, check out what is available, and if you see something that you want, go in and grab it. There's no reason to wait.
So it's interesting, Tom, this year, doorbuster deals were back for some retailers. Also, we saw stores like Kohl's and JCPenney actually open up their doors at 5 a.m. Other retailers like Target decided to offer some welcome gifts and prizes to get
Jesus
those in-store
Christ.
shoppers through their doors.
Yeah, but I
we'll
heard
see
Target's
when the data
was
come
shit.
back, Tom,
So-
just
Yeah.
how successful a season, a Black Friday
Yeah, but they're just
weekend really
desperate.
it was for all of these retailers. Tom?
Yeah,
Not
you
really,
mentioned
because
appliances.
people
You know,
went.
I'm in the market for a crock pot, so I hope the right people are listening for the holiday gifts.
Shut up. I mean,
So
they wouldn't be doing that if they weren't worried about like people showing up. You know?
no,
Like
they were clearly worried. So you know, so it's like, you know, they had to put on a brave face and be like, everybody go shop. It's okay. You know,
Yeah.
like
and no one's doing that
Yeah.
because
I'm all out of money!
like
yes.
we ain't got shit out here, dog. Like fucking dumb. Anyway, you brought
But-
this.
Yes. So this is from popular resistance, so we're going to debunk a lot of what you heard. And you know what? Even there, they were like promoting capitalism in terms of it's okay to buy,
Yeah.
go and get the sales, like go and get that TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's almost kind of like read the room. Yeah, like read the room, guys. Like people are struggling here. So I get it. Like you have to kind of do this because it's kind of the thing. Well, funny enough though, like I've noticed within the last few years that Black Friday was only kind of exclusive to this country. There was like,
Yeah, it's not like other countries just don't. But it's kind of held over because
they do now.
Yeah.
They do now though. They do now. I think definitely I've seen that within the last few years. Like the UK, I know, has Black Friday now. A lot of other countries in Europe, I know Australia does Black Friday now. But that was kind of a unique American thing in terms of like
there's
the
a
day
whole
after
subreddit
Thanksgiving. It's like
called like American defaultism or whatever. I think that's what it's called. Where it's just like they complain at all these companies, like, they'll put up a turkey for Thanksgiving and stuff, and it's like, yeah, we're in like New Zealand, we don't do that, like that sort of thing. But anyway, it's just more the same with just the consumerist plague that we put upon the world,
But Sean Carson, who wrote this article, America didn't have a boom this Black Friday, reported differently. So he said, actually, that it had a breakdown. Black Friday set another record this year. Reporters treat it as proof that Americans still have strength in their wallets and that the economy has life in it. The president called it the Trump bump. The headlines bragged about an $11.8 billion day, and analysts lined up to praise the numbers. None of it holds up once you look at how people pay for those purchases and how much strain sits underneath those sales. A record weekend in the hollowed out economy is not a sign of confidence. It is a sign of how people will push themselves to give their kids one normal holiday in a year that has left them with nothing extra. The record spending didn't come from rising wages or cash that families finally had on hand. A huge share of this surge ran through the buy now, pay later. Cyber Monday alone saw more than $1 billion of purchases financed in 4 installments. That kind of borrowing for routine gifts isn't a sign of strength. It is households trying to bridge the gap created by years of rising costs and policies that have made everything more expensive. Toys, clothes, electronics, winter coats. None of this should require financing. The fact that it does tells you what shape the country is in. Buy now, pay later has become a replacement for every system that once kept families solvent. People don't turn to short-term debt because they want flexibility. They turn to it because the basic math of their lives no longer works. Credit cards are near their limits. Saving accounts are thin. Raises vanish inside insurance premiums and utility bills. Then tariffs drove up prices on everything from clothing to appliances. A country that forces families into micro debt to cover holiday purchases isn't a country with consumer confidence. It is a country that has lost its guardrails. Holiday spending rises even when the rest of life gets worse because gifting is one of the last pieces of normalcy people can protect. Parents will cut up groceries, skip repairs, and push out bills before they skip Christmas morning. The retail economy relies on that instinct. It needs shoppers to borrow in order to keep the holiday numbers high. Retailers frame buy now, pay later as a helpful tool that smooths out large purchases. Strip away the marketing and you see what's really going on. Seasonal profit depends on households taking financial hits so companies can show strong numbers to investors. The praise from economists falls apart when set against the actual conditions people are living in. Prices rose because tariff policy raised the cost of basic imports. Inflation climbed again. Unemployment stayed high. Healthcare costs absorbed the rest of the paycheck. Every one of those pressures came from decisions made far upstream from families who simply want to buy a few gifts in November. The president pointed to the sales numbers as proof his policies work. It ignores the direct consequences of those same policies, which push prices higher while wages stay flat. This is what collapse looks like in daily life. It doesn't show up as empty shells or dramatic announcements. It shows up in the small financial hacks people use to survive a season that used to feel simple. $1 billion in buy now, pay later on Cyber Monday is one of those signals. Households leaning on a private lending tool because the systems designed to support them have already failed. Politicians can ignore it. Retailers can spin it. The families sitting on new installment plans can't. The contradiction glows brighter every season. Record spending gets reported as a national victory. The debt behind that spending gets ignored. When the public and the press only pay attention to the total number of sales, they miss the far more important question: what does this say about the country when households need installment loans to buy ordinary gifts? That question reveals more about the economy than any upbeat headline. A strong economy doesn't force families to borrow for winter coats, and it doesn't rely on microdebt to carry entire retail seasons. A strong economy doesn't pretend tariffs have no impact while people feel the increase every time they check out. The story told in the headlines is that Americans are resilient and that their ability to spend proves it. Resilience is a word people use when they refuse to confront the structural failures they helped create. If you want to understand the real state of the economy, look away from the numbers politicians celebrate. Look at the checkout screen where families divide a small purchase into 4 payments because their paycheck is already spoken for. Look at the conditions that made that normal. That's the accurate picture of where the country stands. A holiday season that produces both record spending and record emergency borrowing is not a sign of prosperity. It's a warning that the systems meant to protect people have already failed, and families are carrying the costs themselves. Accurate.
Yep. I also think it's like avoid. Just as this aside, I do find it like the younger generations, especially now, are far more like pushed into consumerism with things like Instagram and Snapchat and all this stuff that directly advertises to them based off like their algorithm, you know? So it's like, you know, that Stanley Cup craze not that long ago where every, you know, 8-year-old child needed a, you know, 20-pound thermos to carry around. Like,
which is now worth shit now because they're out of style.
Right. Like,
so
it's the same kind of like they didn't do that as much when I was a kid. I mean, they did, but it just didn't work as well. Like now with the algorithm, it's like real easy to do, you know?
Well, I think the other thing is, along with it, it's funny you say that because, you know, like Target, Starbucks, Walmart, people are claiming, oh, we're boycotting these bitches. We're boycotting these bitches because, you know, but like Target had, for what I understand, like the first 100 people who came to the stores, I think it was Black Friday, got like a swag bag or some shit like that. That ended up being like cheap stuff that you can get. It was like candy and stuff. It wasn't anything spectacular. People were pissed. Yeah. Starbucks apparently, I think I reported on this on Twitter, has like a type bear that you can drink out of that was in limited supply, and people were going nuts trying to get one. Where you can get one without, well, the thing was because it had the Starbucks logo on it. That was kind of the draw. You can find one without the logo for like half of what Starbucks was charging. So so on one hand, it's like people are saying, "Oh, we're going to boycott these bitches," but then the moment the corporation's like, "Okay, we'll give you like this carrot," people like, "Fuck that shit, I want it." So it's like, so that's why I'm kind of like, and fun fact, Nina Turner, a girlfriend, she was at my local Target a couple of weeks ago to protest. I think there may have been about, I'm going to be generous, about 100 people. But like, does anyone really care? Like, look, I'm going to be quite honest. I still shop at Target.
Who the hell cares?
I still shop at Target only because one, like,
Excuse you, Target. You got to get it right.
well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, if people were serious and actually really boycotting them for reasons, that are more pertinent, sure, I would definitely step into the cause and do my part. However, I just feel like it's kind of like more in line of identity politics simply because, like they took away DEI programs. Not to say that was a good thing, but Target has done other shit that I think that was well worth protesting prior to, them doing that people that people necessarily didn't give a fuck about. So my thing is, if you're going to protest, you might as well go for the jugular, not just for some identity politics bullshit.
Yeah.
So whether or not it was good for Target to do that, which I don't agree with either. But the point is that people are not consistent, because the same people who will say I'm willing to protest are usually the same people when they put out the latest swag or the latest trending object from said companies, they will go buy it. So that's why corporations don't give a fuck, because they know they get the consumers anyway.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think social media plays a huge part in that, in terms of this is the next best thing and you must get it, and like energize people up a wall in order to get that shit.
Yeah.
For inflated prices, by the way.
From the same stuff that you can find straight from the Chinese retailer that sold it to them for, discounted on Temu,
Right.
Or directly from the source, which I know people have been doing as well. So it's like, it's just standard capitalism flailing to try to stay. I mean, go look at the Dead Mall series on YouTube and tell me our booming, 90s economy still exists. Like, that shit don't fly anymore. All that shit is
right.
Plus with the Amazon and whatever, you're talking like killing every bit of small business that we've ever had. So
right. Look, the reality is, as much as I hate Amazon, the reality is a lot of the stuff that I can get from Amazon, I can't get anywhere else. Especially like if I need stuff for my kids and I need it right away.
Yeah.
So where I can, I try and buy locally, and I try to buy from small businesses. I did that.
Convenience.
Small Business Saturday. Look, they didn't have any sales, but it's a trusted bookstore. It's a Black-owned bookstore. I needed to get stuff for my dad, so I went there, and it was the extra cost, but I was glad to do it because I was supporting stuff within my community. So I try and do that when I can. I have to get a new phone within the next few days because my phone is currently shit. I don't particularly like Apple, but you kind of caught in the trap. So I can understand it to a point, but I think it's also the idea of where's the line drawn? Especially at this time of year when people were like, oh, we're boycotting Christmas. We're not having Christmas this year. But at the same breath, you're going to have those same people, if not other people, running for the latest trinket, which the quality now is so cheap now. It's not worth the cost of what you're paying for it, but people are going to stretch themselves to the point where they'll get more credit or do a installment plan. But even that, we've reported that people are using installment plans to buy food.
Yep.
Basic shit. Not even going to Chipotle, and getting not even that, but groceries.
Can I get a payment plan on this fucking burrito real quick? I need
that
4 installments.
But that exists. Right, but that exists though. That exists though.
So fucking stupid, dude.
But speaking to the point of what the person in the article was saying, that's exactly the point. It's mainstream media is saying, "Oh, we had the boom," but it's like, how are people spending the money? Like, if people have to pay for it in credit or installments, people are not doing well. It's just because it's Christmas. Many people have kids. They don't want to disappoint the kids or their family members. So they're willing to go into debt to ensure that their families get something, which I get. But at the same time, it's like the line has to come drawn somewhere where you have to figure out, are you going to spend money on that toy or rent? Or paying off your credit card debt or your health care bill. Like, people shouldn't have to choose between paying for the necessities in order to have the luxury things, which, again, I'm not saying they're bad. Sometimes, but it's like, we need to take care of our basic needs first. And
we are the United States government. We don't do that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just, like, people are not being taken care of. Like, and people are strapped. As I said, I went to the mall that weekend. It was not busy at all. Like, so very different from like when I was shopping at this time of year, like even over 20 years ago. Like, the mall would have been packed. So it's not anymore. So, but I don't know. Any last words?
No. I mean,
You didn't go shop.
This
You
is
didn't go
indeed a
shopping.
disturbing universe.
no. I mean, I bought some like fitness stuff because it's the only time they're ever at a price where it's like even remotely
Decent.
affordable. And it's like, dude,
Right.
they're big upping like a fucking 20% discount. I'm like, really? Like, this is 20% is as much as you could give people? Like,
Yeah.
You know.
I think I remember having this talk with you in India, I think last year at this time.
yeah.
Like, and I was like, I think I said that. It was like, if you're not giving at least 20%, bye. Like, it's not worth
like
it.
what's the point?
Or-
I'll wait till it goes on
Right.
sale in the middle of fucking June when no one, like, that's the thing I always thought. Like, why isn't it should be like, a couple of weeks after Christmas is when all this shit really goes on sale, because now they're having to clear the shelves. Plus with all the fucking scam shit on like Black Friday,
I remember
where they put shit to like, it's a TV literally designed for Black Friday prices. Like, it's a completely separate fucking model. Like, they've been doing this nonsense for fucking ever, and apparently people haven't figured it the fuck out yet. Like,
I
okay.
remember when I was a teenager in the 90s, like my mom and stepdad, basically my mom was like, even back then, fuck Christmas, because, like everyone spends so much money just to have it on Christmas when everything will go on sale the following day anyway. So, but then like my stepdad would always wait until the last possible moment.
Yep.
If not on Christmas Eve, to get those now that's a risk.
Yes.
Back then, because you may not have been able to get what you wanted by then, but they would have been after Christmas it'll be cheaper still. But if you needed it by Christmas, you will wait until like the weekend before or hours before when the prices would go down. That was kind of like the game people were playing back then. But that doesn't really exist anymore. Well, mostly because people don't have the money to even justify paying for shit now.
Yup.
So,
yup.
I got tuned in early, and like, and I wasn't even like politically savvy then. It was just my family was just like, well, I came from, at least on my mom's part of the family, middle class, heavily middle class, if that.
Yeah.
And we were definitely having to watch our money, like for everything. So the idea, like they were telling me even back then, buying for Christmas is for really pussies, in terms of, you're going to spend all that money by December 26th is going to go down to half the price and you're going to return the shit anyway, you might as well almost wait till after, you know? So I got tuned in.
Yeah, we should just start a thing with like poor people's fucking holidays and then just put it like 3 months into like, you know, February or something, you know, where there's nothing else. Like, we'll just do that. Everything will be cheaper then, you know?
Well,
we'll just
there's
push
this,
it back a
I
little.
wouldn't say it's an old wives' tale, but there's like many stories that even I've heard growing up of like people would buy stuff after Christmas and hold on to it for the year to give to the next Christmas, that type of thing, you know? So I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that depending on what it is, but, you know, but, but yeah, it's these same games that people, but I think now it's kind of getting more desperate because at least back then you can imagine people had some type of money in some way, shape, or form that like these like layaway existed growing up, but like it wasn't like as abundant, I would say, as it is now, or at least being marketed now. Almost layaway. Look, it was almost in a way kind of like the last, like people, why people do it back then, it wasn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like even back then, people did it, but it wasn't something that you would kind of announce, really. Like, oh, I had this on layaway. It was almost kind of seemed like the poor man's way of getting shit.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the implication that was, even though like it existed. But now people are just openly saying, oh, I use Klarna or buy now, pay later for basic stuff.
Which I've always been told never to do that for anything. Right. Like all those fucking rent to own places are such fucking scams. Like,
yeah. And you notice where most of those businesses are placed.
Yes, sir. In the ghetto, like,
right. Well, low income, but
yeah.
So yeah. But as I told you, this phone that I do plan to get, I'm buying outright. You know, only because number one, I don't want to be tied to a contract where I have to pay. Well, I'll pay it off over a few months, but that's adding to my bill in order to do that. You know, so I'm going to pay it outright. The phone will be mine. And then if I want to sell it whenever I want to, I can, you know, and get more money for it than what I'll definitely get for my phone now. Now it's cracked, so wasn't going to get a whole lot to begin with. But, you know, I mean, that's always the best thing to do is just buy it outright. Even if you buy in credit, like, because I will plan to buy in credit card, but I have the money. So it's just like, get the points, but I'll pay it right off. So, but, you know, like, but people can't do that. So, and that's the point. It's like people are buying or using credit for things they need, which in of itself is not what mainstream media is telling you. It's, well, some might be, but they kind of gloss over it, especially at this time. It's like, no, people are only buying because it's Christmas, and you kind of have to keep up appearances in terms of 'tis the season, and you get stuff, you give stuff, and you play into that. But people are strapped, and yeah, just with everything going on in administration with tariffs and all that, it's just making things low. So, you know, but as we say, that's why we're demonetized, because we talk about stuff like this. And hey, we don't ask you guys for money. You gladly give to us, but we are no means indebted to you for your money. And that, as we said, you know, like, we understand this is, you know, you are shopping for your families and you're trying to take care of yourselves. So as we always say, take care of yourselves first. That being said, if you do want to support us financially, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen. Go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. If you're in the YouTube chat right now and you're live, type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up in the chat, and you can click on it and donate. Anything as little as $1 will help. So We appreciate that. And let us know in the chat, like, did you participate in Black Friday or Cyber Week deals? Like, how are you responding to all of this Black Friday bullshit? Like, let us know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share our clips or content to fight this suppression on YouTube. And thanks for watching.
Nope. Well, let's check in with chat. Chat, how you holding up? Chat, you doing okay? You still here? You haven't fell asleep? Angel Rivera, it's all about the padding, the fourth quarter numbers for Walmart, Target, and Sears. Did I just age myself with the Sears reference? Nah, dude.
Yes, you
Sears,
did, because
Sears was legit.
Sears exists.
Like,
they do, but Sears is not as popping as it used to be.
Black Friday is a scam. I worked in retail before. What they do is a month or two before, they increase prices on their merch. And then for Black Friday, they lower prices, but still more expensive. Yep.
Oh, I saw even on social media, they still do that. And that is obvious now, but they still are doing that, you know? So yeah.
Black Friday is literally to boost fourth quarter earnings and eliminate overstock. Accord Lord.
Yep.
But what else we got? Angel Rivera, I'm like, I don't care. I'm too broke for Grimbus. Like, yup. Again, please, sir, can we have some crumbs? Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like we're fucking Tiny Tim all the goddamn time. You know?
Sure.
And like, there's no Scrooge. Like, where are those fucking ghosts at? All y'all believe in ghosts. Where are the fucking ghosts who are supposed to terrorize CEOs that are shitty? Where are they at, huh?
Right.
Like,
here's what I saw that was interesting. At Snorky 2K521, and thank you for the super chat, by the way, or the Ko-fi donation. I drove 100 miles to buy a coat. We have had temps below 40 before wind chill several times. I needed a coat that I can use when it's really cold, and could not find one that fit in that town. See, that's the other part of it. Like, what if you live in a rural area?
Right.
Right. Online may not necessarily be an option for you, and you have to drive. So you're spending gas money in order to go to the nearest town or mall, which may be hundreds of miles away, only to get to something that you may not be able to get in your size, and having to pay more for it. Like, that's ridiculous. And again, this is like something you need. You need a winter, especially if you live in the northern United States. You need a fucking winter coat. You needed one if you live around where I am. You needed one like this week because it's been blistering cold. So
fucking awful. I'm trying to. Snorky had another one too that I was gonna pull, but yeah, Snorky. I live out in nowhere. I have to buy a lot online. Yup. And like, there's one place to go do that, you know. And it's like, I try to avoid using that fucking website as much as possible, but occasionally it's the only fucking place.
Accord Lord, never had a credit card, never took out a loan.
Yeah.
I'm worthless to the system. Well, yeah, I think I talked about that maybe a couple of weeks ago, how if you have a credit card and you pay it off right away, I forgot what the term the banks use, but essentially you're no use to them because they're not getting the money off of interest from you in order to make money off of you. So yes, you're useless to them. However, I will say it's a necessary evil if you want a house, if you have to have a car. Like, there are certain things that you do need credit for. So, at least in my opinion, like, so, nothing wrong with having a credit card. But yes, it's always best to use it when you know you have the money. I think Angel said something similar. If you can afford it, you should buy it in cash. So as I said, like I'm getting this phone, I'm going to pay for it with my Apple card that I have, and I'm paying it right off because I have the money. So I just get the points or whatever they give me, in terms of buying the phone. So yeah, so that's the ideal. Like, get the perks, but pay it off if at all possible.
Snorky, 1/4 of my pay is held until December 31st. Sure would be nice to have a couple of weeks earlier. And I'm a professor. I had to take the classes of another teacher who had heart issues after shot. Since it is overtime, they basically need the governor's signature on my check. Yep. And I'm sure the governor is just happily all on it, All one same. Our family is doing a thrift gift Christmas, buying secondhand thrift shop, charity shop, and crafter artisans work. Not a bad idea.
Though? That's what people That's what people should be focusing, especially if they're like boycotting. It's like you shouldn't have to feel like, I understand boycotting like the large corporations, but at the same time too, you should be trying to support small business. You should be trying to make shit. Like, no one's saying you should not buy a damn thing over the holidays. I don't think, especially like, but what I'm saying is put your money where it's going to go to good use. Try to invest within the community if at all possible. Like, that's what people should be, I think, highlighting, if anything else. But I haven't really seen it online. It's the idea of like Christmas is canceled or holidays are canceled. And it's like, no, you don't want to necessarily do that. This is just my take. You don't want to do that either, because that's going to affect the workers. Like, who are working, who may not have a choice to work at these places where, but definitely if you can, try and support small businesses who need your business to get stuff for Christmas, even if you have to pay a little bit more for it, so, but I'm not necessarily hearing that, at least in social media. It's just like, we're done. But as I said in the same breath, when the corporations put out the next trending thing, which is being pushed by the algorithm / TikTok, Instagram influencers, they run like mindless sheep to get it.
Yep. Well, let's get to our next one. We have, I'm sure none of you heard about this, because why would they publicize things like this? But we're going to talk about it. So there was an event that happened in Israel, Collin, called the Friends of Zion, right? Which isn't the local cult that, hikes up the mountain every other week. It's worse than that. So at the Friends of Zion Summit, Israel trains American evangelicals to be Israeli propagandists. So who do you think showed up there, Care Bear? Who do you think?
Let's see. Evangelical.
There's definitely some options. But
sure. See, I'm a little far removed from that now.
Yep.
So
yep. You'll see things we talked about though as we continue. But
I just can't think of names right now.
Sure. So this is from The Dissonant, right? INN member. He writes some good stuff. Go follow his stuff. Links in description as always. But after committing a live stream genocide for 2 years, American support for Israel across the political spectrum is at a record low. Since Israel relies entirely on U.S. weapons, troops, and funding, the Israeli government is waging a major propaganda campaign in an attempt to win back American support for Israel. Israel has upped its Hasbara, or propaganda, budget from $150 million to $729 million starting next year. And the Israeli paper Haaretz reported that the Israeli government has signed contracts worth millions of dollars in recent months to rehabilitate Israel's standing in American public opinion, both online and offline. Why do you have to rehabilitate it, huh? The goose wants to know. Why do you have to rehabilitate? Fucking maybe it's because you genocided an entire people and need to whitewash your bullshit. Part of this propaganda campaign includes Israel targeting American evangelical Christians, with Haaretz reporting that an Israeli campaign commissioned for the foreign ministry describes a focus on churches and Christian organizations in the United States aimed at countering declining support for Israel among evangelical Christians. Now, Collin, we've talked about this not that long ago, specifically with things like VR October 7th experiences that they're sending out to these churches, stuff like that.
Yes.
So Haaretz reported that the campaign includes the largest geofencing campaign in U.S. history, a pitch to map the physical parameters of every major church and Christian college in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado during worship hours, identifying attendees using commercial data, tracking data, and tracking them. So with relevant ads on top of that. So like,
I'd like to repeat that because it sounds vaguely important.
This is bad. This is bad. They're going to map the physical parameters of every major church? And you think they're going to stop at these fucking states? No. Thankfully, I'm not religious, so but I'm gonna avoid these places. I would worship from home if I were y'all, especially if your church is one of these. You know? So, and just this fucking, we're gonna get to this later in the show too, about this like tracking the commercial data. Like, they're gonna read that your phone with Google Maps went to the fucking church. Like, it's just kind of despicable, you know? As part of the propaganda campaign, last week, from Wednesday to Sunday, the Israeli Foreign Ministry, in coordination with the Christian Zionist group Friends of Zion, sent over 1,000 Christian pastors and influencers, I wonder who those fucking people are, the largest ever U.S. evangelical delegation to visit Israel, in order to train them to be propagandists for Israel in America. The 5-day-long summit, which included speeches from Israeli officials and Christian Zionists, including the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, was intended to turn the 1,000 Christian pastors and influencers into pro-Israel ambassadors at the time of war. So, this motherfucker, Collin, spoke for 2.5 hours. By himself. 2.5 hours. I am only subjecting you people to a minute and 39 seconds of this asshole. So be thankful like that is all you have to hear.
That those who are saying things that are negative about Israel that are not true, they have the free speech right to say them, but you have the free speech responsibility to push back, stand up, speak up, and say, not in this country. America will not stand silent.
Where are they at? They're fucking Israel right now. He's like, not in this America. Like, you're not in America, you dumb fuck. Yes, you're talking to Americans, but
we need the pulpits of America to be on fire with truth, not propaganda. Nobody is asking you to go back to America and tell some story made up about Israel. Nobody's asking you to go and present some version of history that doesn't exist.
Reverse psychology, sir, works real well.
simply being asked to go back and tell the truth. And tell it from the scriptures. Because you could tell it from the front pages of the New York Times, and it would not be the truth. But if you tell it from the holy word of the holy God, you will be telling the truth, and the scripture may very visibly say that this is the land that God gave to the Jewish people.
No, it doesn't.
And he said he will bless those who bless Israel, but he will curse those who curse Israel.
Good. Fuck that guy. That's what he wrote. Like, fucking, anyway. So, I'm sure the 5 days of content is filled with gems such as that. I'm sure there's some, people slip some information in there that they probably didn't want everyone hearing. So feel free to go back and go look through that. I think it's linked in the Dissonance article, linked in the description. So, yeah, it's just great stuff. So, Israeli media reported that at the end of the summit, attendees signed a certificate pledging to stand with and advocate for the state of Israel worldwide. But Mike, but Huckabee, sir, I thought you said no one was asking them to be a propagandist for Israel. Is that not the certificate that they fucking had to sign right the fuck after the thing was over to stand and advocate for the, like, that is that not what a propagandist does? Care Bear, am I wrong? Am I crazy? Like, I feel like
You're
it
crazy,
sometimes.
You are, but not for this.
I mean, I'll take it. So, declaring their commitment to promote Israel and strengthen its global standing. At the summit's opening ceremony, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "You've gathered to fight an important threat to our common future," referring to American criticism of Israel, and called on them to be propagandists of America for Israel. He fucking said the line. Like, I mean, he didn't. That's not the quote. That's the dissonant. But practically, like, anyway. So, tell the truth. Speak to young people. Speak up and be counted. I'm counting on you, and I'll know you do what has to be done. Okay. Israeli President Isaac Herzog spelled out even further, saying that by the end of the weekend, the attendees would be officially commissioned as Friends of Zion ambassadors, and admitting that the point of the summit was harnessing the power of a core of informed faith leaders, which was a critical opponent in fighting the ideological war being waged against the state of Israel. He said at the summit, as religious leaders, as pastors, the moral calling upon you has been immediate and direct, and so many of you have stepped forward to help mediate the truth, cut through the lies, and cultivate a deep love for the nation of Israel in your churches and communities. Similarly, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar at the summit said the intention was to counter an evil campaign which was attempting to ruin the U.S.-Israel alliance. He explicitly told the Christian pastors that the goal behind the summit was to get them to manufacture consent for American support for Israeli wars, saying Israel is indispensable for the United States and its national security interests. We are fighting by ourselves against enemies that are also enemies of America, enemies such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and adding those who try to harm the U.S.-Israel alliance harm the U.S. itself. And these values, the Judeo-Christian alliance, from the basis of Western civilization, it's the foundation of the unbreakable bond between Israel and America. Okay, the summit also included a visit to the site of the Nova Music Festival on October 7th, where Golam, the IDF colonel who helped cook up the 40 beheaded babies and mass rape on October 7th hoaxes, spread more atrocity propaganda and called on the Christian pastors to be propagandists for Israel and the IDF, saying, "You are the living people that should carry the memory and support the eternal efforts. The internal war between good and bad, you supporting Israel, you supporting the IDF, is enormous. Israel is the one to lead the war of good, and we are risking our lives to save everybody's lives. Now it is your turn to hold our hand, to stand forward, to say, here we are, standing against the bad and encouraging the good. At the graduation ceremony for the summit, Sagi Vasulin, a former senior officer and operations commander in the ISF, said that American Israeli critics like the New York Zohran Mamdani and journalist Tucker Carlson were the eighth front in Israel's war and the biggest threat to Israel. We're doing real poor if that's the biggest threats. I'm just going to say that right now. In Israel, we are losing this front. As part of the Eight Front War, Israel has now trained 1,000 evangelical Christian pastors to be pro-Israel ambassadors and cultivate a deep love for the nation of Israel in order to manufacture consent for American support for Israel's genocidal wars. The summit was just the beginning of a wider propaganda campaign. The Christian Broadcasting Network reported that Shira Mills from the Friends of Zion said that the vision going forward, recruiting 10,000 more pastors in the next 36 months, because there are a lot of young people that are not for Israel. And the idea behind the campaign is to reach the youth of America and manufacture consent for Israeli support. So, thoughts, Care Bear? Like,
I mean, you've talked about this a lot. Like,
yes.
And it's not surprising that, well, the idea is that Israel is losing its hold, I think, just basically in the mainstream in terms of, like uncritical support. And especially so now they're trying to go to the churches in order to get that support. But I don't think that's going to work either, given, it might work for the old people who don't know any better, but definitely not the young people who are in colleges, who are young professionals,
right,
who are well-versed on Instagram, social media in general, and have seen the carnage that is happening in Gaza and in the West Bank at the hands of Israel. And honestly, it kind of saddens me for someone who was in the faith for a good chunk of my life that there isn't much more of a discussion being had in terms of how to keep Israel accountable for the crimes that they're committing.
Right.
So it's, and I think I said this on stream before, it kind of disappointed me that, and I won't say the name of the church or the movement that it was affiliated with, but I remember when October 7th happened, this church movement put up something on Instagram that said, prayers for Israel and the Middle East.
Right.
So they kind of all lives mattered it, but the focus obviously was on Israel, not on Palestine per se, in this case, or any country really in the Middle East for that matter.
Where was Jesus born again? Remind me. Like, where's that at? Y'all forget? Right. Like,
so
where did he spend most of his time at? Like, y'all remember where that's at? Like, big town with a J on it? Like,
Well, the issue is that Jesus, in Christian circles, was raised Jewish.
Yes.
Therefore, but nationally, given that at the time when he was alive, it was a Roman colony. You argue Judea at that point. But
if he existed at all, which is,
right,
disputed.
Well, that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But it was under the name of, and I'm going to get this wrong, but Palestine was the name that was given to the region for centuries until recently. So regardless, it's still the idea. But even with that, it's like, okay, you can disagree or whatever, but it's still the idea of the murder, the carnage, and like almost, and I think especially like, and again, I'm far removed from the church now to even know, but there's no talk in terms of the blatant genocide that is going on, and you would think as Christians, or at least evangelical Christians, that they should be standing up against that. And to be fair, I haven't been in church for a very long time to know what conversations are being had in the church, but that doesn't seem to be a lot, especially given how much, I think just more of the doubling down of like, Israel is our ally. Israel is like the place, given our propagandized mind. I'm going to say it that way, in terms of the Bible, whatever you kind of think of it.
Mhm.
And we're going to stand by Israel uncritically. So I mean, I just find it disappointing, especially since that could have been, well, not to say that could have been me, but I was in communities where this kind of thinking exists.
Yep.
And especially since a lot of my friends, even who I've talked to recently, have kind of shown their ass in terms of really how plugged in they are to this. But especially given that a few of them are it's Islamophobic along with that.
Yeah.
So, and these are the same people who are willing to go to the Middle East countries like Jordan and Morocco, like at least I've gone to, in order to evangelize the gospel. So it's, I don't know, like,
you could outlaw religion and most of these sex crimes would disappear in a couple of generations. But we don't have time for rational solutions.
Yeah, it just makes me feel kind of awkward, especially given, like for me, this was essentially people who I call family for a good chunk of my life. And now, granted, like I stepped away from the church way before, but in what I've seen since, it's been very disappointing.
Yeah, the people are usually not the problem. I mean, sometimes they're the problem, but
sometimes,
it's usually it's not the fault. It's not the fault. But I do wonder if my pal Victor Marx and his All Things Possible Ministries made an appearance to Israel this week. I wonder if that's the case. I'll be looking out. I'll be looking at that thing to see if y'all sign that. Y'all graduate Friends of Zion school or what? Huh? Anyway, talking about this is why YouTube's decided to demonetize us. So you can scan the QR code on your screen. Go to code-v.com/Indie News Network if you would like to get around that system and leave us a few dollary dues anyway. If you can't, just do the engagement stuff that supposedly helps our channel. Like and subscribe, share the videos, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. All that engagement helps us immensely. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Pew! Oh, get that face off my screen. Gross. Chat, how you holding up? Accord Lord, these people are insane. I have seen insane people with better aspects to them, But yep. Snorky, in Iowa, it's illegal to boycott any company based in Israel. I don't know how the fuck they can do that when we have the First Amendment. I don't know how that shit works. Y'all need to figure that shit out. Boycott Iowa. How about that? Are you allowed to boycott Iowa in Iowa? Is that a fucking thing? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, it's just craziness. We'll see more of that. They're definitely going to push that propaganda harder. You know. Referencing "Pray for Israel" in the Middle East comment. Yeah, it's dumb. Over on Rumble. Yeah, it's bad. Churches need to pay property taxes like everyone else. It's not the only fucking ones. Lindsey Graham as well could be there, possibly. I'm sure he needs a vacation.
No, This is a Christian.
Sure.
But
Christian, like
right, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But
I feel you, dog. I feel you. There's definitely some books they didn't fucking read, right?
Well, he's allegedly living a lifestyle that is not necessarily compatible with me.
Allegedly. Anyway.
Although I live in DC and I've heard some things from friends of friends who I believe.
It's like you got California sober and you got DC religious. That's your options, you know? So anyway, you're gonna make us look at this lady.
Unfortunately. So I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
But I think but it's not just her.
Yeah.
To be fair. It's the party and who she represents. So she's not the only one who thinks this way. I would argue that a lot of the Democratic Party also. Well, what do I mean, Colin? Well, I'm going to get to that later. But so I'm sure I know other independent media channels have talked about this event. She was at the Doja Forum, I believe, in Israel.
Yeah, Doha's in Qatar, because we talked about that recently, where Israel bombed Doha. Remember?
Right. And she made a comment regarding young people in terms of somewhat misinformation regarding Israel of what they know on social media. So obviously, people felt away. And she doubled down on it. So now she's trying, not backtracking, but she's saying it with her whole chest, basically what she said, which I kind of respect in a sense for that. But as I said, she's dead wrong. So how is she wrong, Colin? Well, so I pulled out this article from SheerPost, written by Josh Shear. Once again, I read another article of his last week.
Yep.
Where he writes, Hillary Clinton condemns all suffering except the one we pay for. So he continues, at the Doha Forum today, Hillary Clinton reiterated comments from last week's Israel-Hamas summit, claiming that young people who are pro-Palestinian are being misled by social media and are getting an incomplete view of the conflict. While acknowledging that the suffering in Gaza is horrific, in quotations, Clinton stressed that focusing exclusively on one conflict overlooks broader global crises. Suffering everywhere is horrific, she said, listing conflicts in Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, and Eastern Congo. Clinton added, I am angry about all of the human rights abuses. I am angry about all the excessive use of force. I'm angry about what happened on October 7th in Israel. I'm angry about what happened in Gaza. I'm angry about what Russia is doing to Ukraine. I'm angry about what is happening in Sudan. I'm angry about what is happening in Eastern Congo. Oh.
It's all right.
Is it?
Just takes a second. That's the one I was like, why is this one fucked? Okay. But it's okay.
So I am going to this might be considered torture for some of you. But I think it's important to hear exactly what she said in the context that she said it, mostly. So I forgot who this guy is sitting across from her, but he asked her about her comments, and as I said, she doubled down on him. So we're gonna watch about 6 minutes. I timed it, so we watched about 6 minutes of it, and then we'll continue.
I want to talk about you now. You've been in the news this past week for some comments you made at an event in New York organized by the newspaper Israel Hayom. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but you said that smart, well-educated young Americans are getting their news from social media and from TikTok, and you went on to say that this is how they're learning about what happened on October 7th and then what happened in Gaza in the months that followed. And it appears that this was a broader lament on your part about declining support among Americans for Israel. That comment has generated a lot of controversy, and it's led Congressman Ro Khanna, for example, to point out that I don't think the answer is to disparage the intelligence of young people. It's been a few days now since you've said that. How are you reflecting on your words and the controversy around it?
Well, I think it is a provable fact that most Americans, and an even bigger percentage of young Americans, get their news from social media. If that is controversial, then people are not paying attention to.
Pause. Why is that?
Yeah, because fucking mainstream media sucks ass. That's why.
Right.
And
it's not to say
propagandist arm.
Right. So, and a lot of people recognize that. So that's why independent media exists.
Yeah.
Almost to the detriment, in a
sense. Which is why they've been trying to get fucking control of that shit, and they've been doing a pretty damn good job of it too. Like,
right.
So,
but it's almost like she's kind of alluding to the idea of like we should be looking at like the Washington Post or the New York Times as credible. So
yeah, no.
Instead of the people who are witnesses to the actual events that are happening on the ground. So that's why people online have the access now, fortunately, given social media, that they're able. So it's almost like she's saying, don't listen to like the Palestinian journalist who's reporting on the ground. Like, because it might be read as misinformation. Sorry. But if they're the only ones there who are able to report on it openly, they have to use social media to report it because mainstream media isn't going to report it. So she didn't mention that piece, but that's kind of what she's giving. She's kind of saying like the mainstream sources are the ones that you should be looking to, not necessarily things that are on social media, which I argue now it could be, not to say there isn't misinformation, but she's always kind of discounting, as I said, the actual journalists on the ground who are actually there reporting. So you can go ahead with the rest.
I don't know if it's a bad thing, but I think it's an incomplete.
Well, let me rephrase this.
They should be listening to you, Ravi. I mean, obviously.
People do listen to me for what it's worth, and I am also on
No,
Instagram
they fucking don't. No one knows who the fuck you are.
Point here is that if Americans are shifting in their views about Israel, and poll after poll shows that that is the case.
They're listening to Kai Cenat. That's who they're listening to.
That is based on some information that they're getting not
fucking
just from social media, but
Speed.
also from very reputable journalists operating in the region, also Palestinian journalists in Gaza. Why is that not?
Thank you for mentioning that.
I'm not saying it's not accurate. I am saying that I teach at Columbia University, and
unfortunately,
I teach a course called Inside the Situation Room, and so it's a very large course. I co-teach it with the dean of the School of International and Public Affairs, and so I've had many conversations with very smart young people, not just Americans, but literally from around the world.
It's worth pointing out that Columbia, of course, has been a center of some protest and action.
And it was.
On this
and
issue.
I talked to students there. I've talked to students elsewhere. And in talking with them about their views, they were certainly entitled to those views based on whatever information they had. But they did not always know why they were saying what they said. And all I'm asking for is that people have a historical context, both for what has happened to the Palestinians and what has happened to the Israelis, because we are not going to implement the 20-point peace plan or any other peace plan unless people come with some sense of historical perspective and empathy about how we're going to move people toward what I still believe is the only realistic outcome, a two-state solution. And we're not going to get there if people, when they say from the river to the sea, and you say what river and what sea, and they don't know, which has personally happened in conversations that I've had. I just, but this is a larger issue, because even on other matters in this class that I teach, we are not doing a good job teaching history. We're not giving young people the kind of context that I think they need to be decision makers.
But with all due respect, and I can't gauge how well young people grapple with history, but what I can speak to is they're grappling with the here and now. And they are witnessing images that are live streamed, that are coming out every day. And yes, there is misinformation and disinformation, but a lot of it is real. And I think there's a genuine anger in the United States and around the world that some of that anger is deflected.
But Robbie, I'm angry about all of the human rights.
Sure you are.
I'm angry about all of the excessive use of
just
force.
none of them done by the Clinton
about,
Foundation
what happened
in
on
Haiti.
October 7th in Israel and what happened in Gaza. I'm angry about what Russia's doing in Ukraine. I'm angry about Sudan. I'm angry about the Eastern Congo. I mean, I think we should be all looking at the tragedies and the conflicts that are bringing about so much suffering and be dealing with them. That's why the national security strategy is not to my liking, because I think the United States has an important role in trying to resolve these conflicts and alleviate the suffering and give people.
Which is why she fucking wanted Gaddafi out, because she loves regime change. Big fan of it.
Chance to have peaceful, prosperous lives. That should be our goal. That is in America's interest. I don't care where in the world you are. So, of course, the suffering in Gaza is horrific. Full stop. Suffering everywhere is horrific. So let's look at what we can do to try to resolve, what is being done to people in so many different settings right now. And I think that the emphasis on one terrible...
Let's look into it. What do you mean? You didn't do some cursory glances beforehand? Like, of the things you might be able to fucking do? Like, what is this fucking... This is just fucking obfuscation, rhetorical nonsense. Like,
conflict.
Fucking stupid. I remember why I quit watching this lady.
Challenges that we are,
my blood pressure couldn't take it anymore.
Basically say, you know what? Those other presidents, they tried to resolve conflicts. They tried to stand for democracy and freedom. They stood up for human rights. What a waste of time. That is, to me,
when do they say
an
that?
abdication of leadership. And I want to see us involved everywhere, trying to stop the kind of horrible abuses that are going on.
Fucking stupid. Stupid. Like, that's all I gotta fuck. The whole thing was stupid.
Congratulations on being the world's biggest bitch.
Stupid. Anything you wanted to add? Like,
no.
Okay.
No, as I said, sorry I subjected you guys to that. But anyway, let's continue in the article. Hillary says suffering everywhere is horrific, full stop. And yes, suffering everywhere is horrific. However, the suffering we are talking about in Israel is state-sponsored, and we fund it. There is a glaring double standard, as I noted yesterday. State-sponsored terror that Clinton has been complicit in is treated differently. She also said that our leaders have stood up for human rights. Since when? Please tell me. I'm thinking maybe FDR, but even he did so while imprisoning Japanese civilians. So really, when has the United States generally championed human rights for anything beyond its own interests? She also said that our leaders stood for democracy and freedom. I'm guessing she means Vietnam and Korea. In Vietnam alone, over 3 million people died, more than 10 million were displaced from South Vietnam, and now over 100,000 U.S. soldiers, many of them drafted, were killed.
By her friend,
not to mention
Henry Kissinger.
landmines.
Yeah.
Right. Not to mention landmines in Cambodia and her friend, Henry Kissinger.
Yeah. Ugh.
About landmines, just this week, the deaths from them hit a 5-year high. Also, I'll end with democracy and freedom. Let's talk about Iraq in 1991. The U.S. funded and supported Saddam Hussein in his use of chemical weapons against Iranians and his own people from foreign policy. The US knew Hussein was launching some of the worst chemical attacks in history and still gave him a hand, then turned around and attacked him for it for years, imposing sanctions that his people suffered under. Later, we reverted lies to justify going to war with him again, a war that Hillary, as a senator, supported. We constantly told the world how terrible this man was for using chemical weapons on civilians, yet many failed to mention that we had provided him with the weapons in the first place. It was essentially our proxy war with Russia and Iran that enabled it. Clinton also repeated the lie in 2003 that Iraq was housing al-Qaeda terrorists and that the vote was, as she said, this was a very difficult vote. This is probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make. Any vote that might lead to war should be hard, but I cast it with conviction. Too bad she doesn't have that conviction about the abuses being done by the Israeli government. I wonder if it's October 7th type attack had happened against Saddam, what might she have said? To swing back to war buddies, Kissinger and she are so close, a whole article is written about them in ABC News. The two former secretaries of state have been close for years, with Clinton calling him a friend and noting that she relied on his counsel when she was Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. There's more. And let's not forget the head witch herself, Madeleine Albright, who infamously said that the deaths of Iraqi children were worth it. Is this the kind of leader Clinton is praising?
And let's not forget
let's go
who
back to
happily interviewed Madeleine Albright as well. Don't forget that shit. You know,
right? So
they were doing things this
clip.
weekend.
Right. So let's go to that clip. I'm sure everyone knows this clip.
Yep.
Of what Madeleine said regarding killing of Iranian children.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Right. So, and we got a little more for you. So if we go to the next clip.
Yep.
And look who's standing right next to her.
I clicked one more. My bad.
We can tell our story about how we climbed the ladder, and a lot of you younger women don't think you have to, it's been done. It's not done, and you have to help. Hillary Clinton will always be there for you, and just remember, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other.
Just in case you guys didn't know that was me.
And then you got fucking Cory Book over here.
Because Putin's a madman.
Fucking glad we don't have to deal with him as much anymore. That's nice. Anyway.
Let's go back in the article. Sadly, both Albright and Kissinger passed away after doing maximum damage. I often think about the concept of hell, and I wonder if they found that special place Albright once spoke of. Honestly, they may be already serving as advisors to the devil. Probably. To end this tangent inspired by Hillary's words, let's not forget that the leaders of this country built it on slavery and on the taking of land that never belonged to the U.S., aside from what the church claimed to justify it. Its suffering is truly horrific, and we are sending money and support to one regime that is killing a largely civilian population. Then there must be some accountability, not double standards. Here's Hillary on Trump, her words about Trump moving away from core American values and supporting Russia's war in Ukraine. So let's go to this. On the side is the next clip.
Yep.
So you can play that.
When you look around the world, what is your sense of the impact Trump has had on his second term on countries around the world?
Well, personally, quite concerned about the impact because there has been a very heavy emphasis on moving away from what I think are core American values in a number of ways. And that's not to say that there haven't been some successes.
Can you describe those values? What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine, both in an affirmative way by very rarely criticizing Putin for the brutal war that he has waged on the Ukrainian people, and then attempting to try to coerce the Ukrainians into accepting a negotiated ceasefire and peace deal that would be, by any objective measure, leaving them vulnerable to further Russian activity. Remember, Russia...
And you're going to call Boris Johnson, like, to figure out why he fucking called that shit off, or what? You going to call fucking Biden for fucking antagonizing and blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline? Or what? What are you going to do? Nothing. You going to fucking... Shove it up your ugly ass! Stupid.
Has been in Ukraine since 2014. So this didn't start in 2022.
No, it started in fucking 2009 when we started the fucking Maidan coup, which, Lindsey Graham and the PayPal mafia and fucking... We've talked about this, Collin. We've addressed these things multiple times already. Like... NATO wasn't supposed to go past Germany, all that shit. Like, anyway. I just love how we're still having to explain this shit. Okay.
Well, speaking of Biden.
Okay.
What great values under Biden? We fund Ukraine and treat Russia with sanctions. Yes, I repeat myself, sanctions them, while Israel, Biden and Harris gaslight our population, telling us how badly Israel is behaving but doing nothing. With Harris writing in her latest book, basically wiping away many of her failures onto others, like Hillary, she writes about a meeting with Bibi. This reporting is from the forward from a meeting in 2024. Netanyahu's hooded gaze and disengaged demeanor made it clear to me that he was running out the clock, she writes. In remarks to the media after the meeting, Harris called it a frank and constructive, yet criticized Israel's execution of the war. In her book, Harris describes it as unproductive. Why not talk about that in real time and put pressure on a regime that relies on us so heavily? Clinton also said in her talk that both Biden and Trump could have been more assertive in dealing with Putin. An honest question, does that mean starting a nuclear war? Seriously. Biden was a cheerleader for the Russian war, but he still had limits. Only last November did he allow the Ukrainians to strike at targets deep in Russian territory. But Russia is a sovereign nation with nuclear weapons. So where does that leave any real room to be more assertive, quote unquote?
And do you want the Russians to become more assertive? Like...
Nope.
No? They've been pretty fucking choosy with how they've been dealing with shit in Ukraine. Like, do you want them to just go full scorched earth, or like...
Also, no. So,
Ugh.
Hillary has been saber-rattling about Putin for a long time. I can only imagine how the United States would have been involved in fighting Russia if she had won in 2016. That election had a lot of talk about Russia, and I don't want to lose the thread. Hillary said her beef with Putin stems from his handling of the 2011 parliamentary elections, in which she described as unfair, not free, illegitimate. I've already rambled long enough to get into Russiagate, but I'll just remind people of what I said at the time. Hillary said what she said. The DNC did what it did, yet somehow the hacking was framed as the real problem. As I said yesterday, if you do the right things for the right reasons, maybe you don't have to hide what you say. To swing back to Israel and its regime without sanctions, we held and hold the purse strings. We are Israel's biggest funder, and Joe Biden was supposed to be Bibi's friend, and yet we've got a genocide. For those who want context with the Council of Foreign Relations, mainstream Israel has received $300 billion in U.S. aid since its founding. The next closest recipient, Egypt, has received less than $200 billion. Of that aid to Israel, 75% had gone to the military. Again, it should be repeated. If we keep giving money to our militaries, they will always need things to shoot at and blow up. And in this case, as in most cases, those things are human beings who have done nothing other than try to live somewhere in peace. Another hack for Hillary to consider, since she's discussing the war with Russia, note in the Ukraine war, Ukrainian civilian casualties are around 14,000. That does not include military personnel, where Russia has reportedly lost 1 million people, not to mention the arms loss and other catastrophic consequences.
Yep.
In September, the death toll for the murder of the Gazian people passed 64,000. That probably is way more than. And these are not military service members. These are innocents. By the way, many military service members in which the conflicts we speak of have no agency and are being forced to fight for a number of reasons. But why, Hillary, are you so bloodthirsty that these people don't count? Is it because of October 7th? Is that why so many should be allowed to die? I repeat myself because maybe, if we ask enough damn times, they won't be able to hide it anymore. Why does Vladimir Putin face sanctions while we fund his opponent? And why do we fund Israel's regime? These are the questions Hillary needs to answer, not vague lines about suffering everywhere. Yes, suffering is bad everywhere, and it should stop. But in this case, with a genocide we directly bankroll, we actually have the power to stop it, and we must stop it. Any thoughts before I finish up?
No. No, sir. You have her statement.
No, I don't. Not from her.
Okay.
This is from the Lincoln Institute. So I pulled this from Instagram. They had a response for Hillary. So this is what they said. This is what they wrote yesterday. The Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention and Human Security feels called to point out that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's most recent remarks at the Israel-Hayom Summit on 2nd of December amount to outright genocide denial. During her remarks, the Secretary correctly noted that the recent deterioration of Israel's standing among U.S. voters is not a Republican versus Democrat kind of divide, but rather a generational one. Nevertheless, she incorrectly diagnosed the reasons for the shift as a matter of purely of optics, saying that Israel has the worst PR of any group, and accusing social media, particularly TikTok, of presenting pure propaganda that American youth are uncritically ingesting. Secretary Clinton's framing is not at all an accurate reflection of why Americans are growing more critical of Israel. Young Americans of all political stripes have not fallen prey to propaganda, though that is always a legitimate concern. Rather, they have consumed 2 years of videos depicting Israel's genocide against Palestinians that have been uploaded by Palestinian journalists, ordinary people trying to survive in Gaza, IDF soldiers, and ordinary Israelis themselves. There has been no convincing retaliation of the sheer amount of raw evidence of genocide coming out of Palestine. Young people in the US are not stupid or gullible. They simply reject genocide, something the Secretary might consider doing as well. Secretary Clinton appears not to be bothered by the reality of genocidal violence. In fact, she did not mention anything about it. Her concern is, rather, in her words, the narrative, the fact that these crimes are no longer hidden and are now being live streamed and documented in real time, making it harder for her and others to control it. TikTok cannot be blamed for the fact that many members of Gen Z understand that Israel is committing genocide, since so many other people, including those who never look at TikTok, also hold that view. Apart from the Lemkin Institute, vast majority of large mainstream human rights organizations, the UN, and many scholars, as well as international legal bodies, have denounced Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide. Many carefully researched reports by international organizations have established that Israel's crimes meet the international legal threshold for genocide. We encourage the former secretary to read them. She probably has, but she doesn't care. Anyway, it is in fact highly ironic to blame TikTok for the dissemination of content laying bare the realities of Israel's genocide in Palestine. Like many other social media conglomerates, TikTok has been accused of systematic censorship of pro-Palestinian content. In July of this year, TikTok appointed an ex-IDF instructor as its new manager of hate speech. This person can hardly be accused of pro-Palestinian views given her background and slated opinions. It appears what Secretary Clinton really means to say is that TikTok is not being effective enough at censoring the truth. What truly seems to unsettle Secretary Clinton is not misinformation, but rather the fact that younger generations are no longer consuming a single state-controlled narrative. They are accessing unfiltered images and testimonies that challenge decades of political messaging. This helps explain why TikTok has become a target, not because it is misleading students, but precisely because the content uploaded by its users allow them to see beyond official propaganda. When former Secretary Clinton calls this a serious problem for democracy, it sounds less like a defense of democratic values and more like concern for the weakening of a long-standing political and ideological agenda, one that, it must be stated, is highly undemocratic. Secretary Clinton did get one thing right, although quite inadvertently. When you do not have the truth on your side, all you have left is indeed optics and the narrative. But she is wrong to think that any amount of PR, even really great and expensive PR, is going to hide this genocide. Israel would be better served by advice to end the genocide, engage in a transformational process that brings the perpetrators to justice, and build a future of Palestinians. That's the only way to change his image. America's young people are no longer fooled by genocide denial, whether it's being presented by Israel, the United States, Sudan, Myanmar, Russia, or Secretary Clinton herself. They are tired of and appalled by continued genocides around the world and are willing to risk their degrees and their careers to let the world know it. The Lemkin Institute continues to support students and young people worldwide for having the courage to stand up for their convictions, to speak truth to power, and to fight against the scourge of genocide in Palestine and elsewhere. Secretary Clinton's remarks are not only inaccurate, they are also a shameful example of the lengths to which people complicit in genocide will go to deny its existence.
Well,
I mean,
sounds about right. What?
And you know what?
Why?
I also believe in a lot of ways, as I said earlier, she's not the only one that thinks this way.
Yeah.
And that's the issue of the Democrat Party in general. And I've said this before. They come off as elitist and know-it-alls that essentially think that we are stupid, even that they won't say that, but they imply through their actions of, oh, you don't know any better, we do. So you need to listen to us. Like the idea that the overwhelming majority of the Democratic base is against this genocide. And yet you have politicians like her and others who will double down on their stance, tells you how much they think of you. The idea that overwhelmingly majority of Democratic voters, and probably some more Republicans, probably even more so now, are in support of universal health care, some type of this country. And instead of like maybe when they had the chance to kind of work towards moving towards such a system, all they could say is, oh, we got to expand the ACA, which in itself is problematic because as we talked about, like if you need subsidies in order for people to afford something, it's not affordable. there needs to be a better way in order to do that, especially right now. So that's so she's not the only one, but obviously like she's kind of arrogant in her stance, so it's easy to pick on her. But I would argue that many Democratic politicians also think this way, or at least think not much of their voter base in order to, at least in action, hold the views that they do. But what frustrates me is that, you know, again, especially within our space, there's so many commentators are so tepid in terms of their, you know, like, and like, it's almost like they can call them out, but not to the point where like they're telling their base or people who listen or watch to move away from the party, like move away from the duopoly. Instead, it's more like, let's have hope that they will be better. That's kind of the impression that they get. And it's like, if they're not proven to you that they're going to get better by their actions now, what do you think will? So that's kind of the frustrating thing that I have in terms of having these people kind of play both sides, in terms of when they have to, they will call out Democratic politicians and people adjacent to them when needed, but they will also say in the same breath, we have to vote for these people because Republicans are ultimately way worse and we have to do damage control. But as we're seeing, you know, like, Democrats set up what Republicans will exploit later on. And so, you know, like the idea that Hillary, again, just disgusting to me that and she's a professor. Like, why in the hell she's teaching students if she believes that they're stupid? Essentially, that's what she's saying. They're stupid. You know, like, and you mentioned, like, I think someone said, you know, it must be kind of tough having class with her. Like, why would you want to have, like,
yeah,
I don't know, but
fucking awful shit. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about them being connected with schools and stuff. We've talked about, you know, all of these, like, you know, it's all your professors are fucking ex-generals and CIA agents, and, you know, they've completely controlled that system too. So of course Hillary's fucking teaching a class. What else is she gonna do? You know, she can't win an election, so, you know, like, I'm surprised she didn't go straight to like the fucking business lobby, you know? But anyway, anything else you gotta add?
No.
Cool.
No, it's not like our audience is gonna be like, yay, anyway, so.
Yeah. Ugh.
But talking about stories like this is why we're demonetized. So if you want to help us, support us financially by scanning the QR code you see on your screen, or you can type in the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen, or if you're in the YouTube chat and we're live, you can type in ! donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up and you can click on that and you can give anything as little as $1 will help to support us in our growth of our channel, as well as paying our bills heading into next year. And if you can't do that, we more than understand. We know that times are tough. The free way is to like, share, and comment on our content, and let us know what you think in regards to Hillary's comments in terms of what she said about young people, in terms of what they're seeing in light of what's happening in Palestine and their views, and how she deems it as quote unquote incomplete. Do you believe that? And why can't she just go away? Let us know in the comments. So, and thank you guys for watching.
Nope. Before we get to that, let's see if chat had anything to add. Driving Me Macy said she was friends with Anthony Weiner. if we remember correctly. But all I heard is that she teaches at Columbia University and that students don't know what they're saying. So, and also adds that Trump has a special way he does his birthday cards. Yeah, he draws little pictures on them, right? Rumble, you got anything to add? Hillary is horrific. Agreed. So, yep. Her depth of understanding is only as far as the money pays for her to lie about. Yep. So, anyway. Yeah, that lady's a fucking despicable individual. You know? So,
yeah.
I mean, if you're friends with Kissinger, that's all I need to know.
Right.
So, anyway. Well, let's get to our next one. So, this is one of those times where Teach brings a video, Collin. We're gonna schoolhouse rock this lesson plan today. You know? So, but I think it's important because you're not going to hear it other places. So this is from Vanessa Beeley. She was on UK Column, which go follow both those places if you haven't already. But she's talking about how Syria is becoming a walled tick fury cauldron, right? So essentially all these border countries around Syria are literally building walls at behest of, you know, us pretty much and Israel. So yeah, not looking good, but I'll let her explain some of this. I think she also went on with Jamal Thomas too to talk about this. So, you know, go check that out as well. And she'll probably put out an article this weekend, I do believe.
I thought walls were being built in the United States. I didn't know walls were being built in Asia.
Yeah, very interesting. Something that I was looking into in depth over the last few days, but particularly yesterday. So if we start, we'll basically go around the border of Syria. So this is the border with Iraq. At the end, there is a map so that people can get an idea of what I'm actually talking about. So this is in November this year, Iraq completes 350 kilometers of concrete border wall with Syria. Other reports have said they've reached up to 400 kilometers. So what does this actually mean? That Baghdad is seeking to seal the entire 618-kilometer border with a multi-layered security system, 3-meter wide trench, 3-meter deep, 4-layer inflatable barrier.
What the fuck is that? What is an inflatable barrier? Like, is there a motherfucker out there with a bicycle pump having to pump up a wall, Collin? Is that what we're doing? You know? We gotta be like the whole time? That's what we gotta fucking do? Like, this is the best wall we can do? Anyway, I did ask Vanessa for clarification, some photos. Like, she was like, they're like barriers. I don't know. Anyway, we'll get to what I looked up and tried to find on this. It's one of those weird things that I got caught up in, like a weird detail of one of these stories. I'm like, what the fuck is an inflatable 4-layer inflatable barrier? So, yeah, what do we got? Inflatable arm flailing, wailing tube men out there? What are we doing? Anyway.
Observation towers every 1 kilometer equipped with advanced thermal cameras linked to a central monitoring system, and no guesses as to who is at that central monitoring system. Integrated defense network made up of trenches, barbed wire, and early warning systems, high precision thermal imaging, and 24/7 surveillance devices. Of course, what is this sounding very similar to? Gaza, and of course the draconian 15-minute cities like Hebron in the occupied territories. So this is a map from 2013. I'm just showing this to show how it was already beginning to take shape even back in 2013.
Come on, YouTube.
2 years into the regime change war against Syria. The areas in black show reinforced border areas, so you can see with Turkey in particular, between Israel and the occupied Golan territories in the south and the border wall with Jordan, leading up to the triangle between the border with Iraq and Jordan. So then going on to Jordan itself, well, guess what? Beginning actually back in 2008, but escalating under the Obama administration. And Mike, you and I were talking yesterday that the policy to basically destroy and destabilize Syria did not begin with any particular president, but it was a bipartisan policy that was continued throughout various presidencies. So in 2016, he spent $500 million on sophisticated electronic fencing on the northern and eastern borders to protect the US bases. The project began in 2008, erected surveillance towers along 50-kilometer stretch of border, fully integrated and networked fence, 442-kilometer border with Syria and Iraq, as I mentioned, that triangle. Camera-studded network of ground sensors with a 5-mile radius either side of the fence, and of course, centralized joint US-Jordan command center receiving all of the information from those surveillance blocks on the fence itself. Then we look at under the Biden administration, again demonstrating how this isn't something that is relative to one particular party in the US or one particular president. So this was in 2024, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act. And I'm just showing this part to show that $397 million was put to one side for the counter-ISIS of Iraq and Syria Train and Equip Fund. Now, the slightly interesting part of this is that part of that fund is going to foreign forces, irregular forces, or groups and individuals without, of course, actually naming them or identifying them. And that sum then is also a portion to border security. And if we can just move on to the next part of the act itself. So the Middle East Partner Reimbursements, Section 8110. $380 million to reimburse Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman, basically for enhanced border security. So this again began under Obama, but was continued under Biden and will continue under Trump until September 2025. Again, I just want to show that Turkey had been building reinforced border areas that you can see in red there. I myself in 2018, this is a 2016 map, but in 2018, I actually went to the northeastern border with Turkey and saw the building of the annexation wall. And again, let's have a look at what this actually represents. So this is the Turkey border security to be boosted by concrete walls. Now, interesting statistics from 2025. It's an 825-kilometer wall, which is almost finished. It's the third longest in the wall after the Great Wall of China and the US-Mexico borders, 120 border towers with regular patrols on either side of the border, 7-ton concrete blocks, 3 meters high, 2 meters wide. Surveillance includes thermal cameras, seismic and acoustic sensors, EU-funded. Cobra armored vehicles are patrolling the wall the entire length. Drone detection, jammers. Now, this is an extraordinary construction that has really effectively gone under the radar in Western media. And then in Lebanon, not only is Israel building, these are just 2 posts from X talking about various areas in the south of Lebanon, where Israel has, of course, invaded Lebanese territory since the ceasefire in November 2024 and is building a separation wall inside Lebanese territory to effectively create its so-called buffer zone in the south. Of course, totally unlawful annexation of territory. And Turkey has done the same in northern Syria. But here comes the UK. So, Mike, you will remember that last year we were talking about UK reinforcement of Lebanese armed forces, but also the establishment of watchtowers along the border with Syria, which are, of course, not to protect the Lebanese, but to effectively, the pretext for these borders is to prevent the smuggling of weapons of mass destruction. So we bring in the pretext for the war against Iraq, of course. But UK military veterans were involved in the training of the Lebanese armed forces, while armored boxes used in the new 30-foot constructions were taken from towers being decommissioned in Northern Ireland as part of the £62 million project. So basically, Britain has also established watchtowers. It's now suggesting that it can do the same on the southern border between Lebanon and Israel. And of course, clearly, this is not for the benefit of these countries. It's for the benefit of the security of Israel and its allies that are stationed, particularly in Lebanon. 115 million of taxpayers' money, UK taxpayers' money, has been spent on effectively reinforcing border security in Lebanon. We can talk about that more in extra. So now I just want to bring up a map that I drew up yesterday, which shows very clearly here exactly how Syria is effectively being completely encircled by these border walls with massive surveillance capabilities. So effectively, it's becoming a tech fury cauldron. The various armed forces like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all the various affiliates are going to be kettled inside Syria, of course, committing heinous massacres against Syrian people. The only open area, sorry, can I just have the map back on for a second? The only open area will be to the coast. And then, of course, they're facing Cyprus, which is gradually being taken over by Israel and Israeli influence. But also, if you look at Lebanon, it's about the corralling of the Lebanese resistance in the south of Lebanon there, because the border wall will effectively close the resistance in Lebanon off from Syria. But also, if you look at the orange arrow there, the reason I've put that there is because effectively this will isolate Syria from Iraq and from Iran, and it will isolate Lebanon from Syria, Iraq, and Iran, and also Palestine from Lebanon and Syria. So this is effectively about corralling, imprisoning any resistance actor states. And in that area of Iraq, so again, this is compounding the imprisonment of Syrians. If we can look at the Yinon plan, we can look at the clean break doctrine, but I just drew up the map of the new Middle East, which was published in the early 2000s. But where I've circled the map, you can actually see that on the border with Syria, the intention is to build an Iraqi Sunni Muslim state, which effectively will again further distance Syria from any assistance that it might receive, either from Iran or from any of the resistance actors in the region.
Quite an incredible situation, quite an incredible development. Vanessa, do you have any idea what the total amount of money that's being spent on this is?
Oh, very difficult to tell because, I mean, Turkey is running its own project. Raytheon in Tucson, Arizona is the prime contractor for the Jordanian
of course they are.
wall. Britain, as we've said to date, have spent 115 million, but it's up in the hundreds of millions that have been poured into this project.
Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of monitoring as well. You know, all these sort of sensors and whatnot. Do you get?
Collin, any thoughts?
How did this go under the radar? That, as far as I know, no one has talked about this.
No. Magic. Yeah, I mean, like the echoes historically are insane to me. Like, the amount of people who built walls like that are like very few. Germany, they're kind of big on those walls. They did a lot of that. Like, during a very particular time in history, they were kind of known for building fortifications like this in 2 places, might I add. Early, he does it in the Black Forest, right? You know, which like that was our military's hardest ordeal, was getting through the Black Forest during that war, right? Because essentially, like the Nazi Party, like built these ridiculous like fortifications because they were expecting like invasion and whatnot. Like it's complicated, but they built a bunch of like giant concrete barriers and tank traps and all that stuff. So that's definitely part of this. The walls around Palestine themselves come to mind. Like, you know, especially with all the surveillance and, you know, like defense systems. So none of this is good. All this surveillance and whatnot. So, and it's also just trying to deal with any of the resistance actors and just wipe them out, you know? So doesn't look good. I tried to look up what those inflatable barriers were, right? Just because I was curious. The only thing I can find is this, which the American Army does use, but I don't think this is what it is. I mean, these are like, hold on, and I'll show you. They're like for training purposes. They're like, you know, you can inflatable fucking terrorist house that they're, you know, sending dudes into. So, but the only other things I could see was like the stuff for like paintball, pretty much. I don't know if you've ever seen those inflatable, like Dorito shaped things, right?
I have.
So I can find one of those for example, but yeah, or the ones for floods, like that are designed to stop flooding, which those can be like, they're big, just long inflatable tubes that you can stack up. But otherwise, I couldn't find anything on it. Barriers. So like, see if I can. No, these are barrels. What is it doing? ARR. There we go. I just can't spell these kind of things, but I doubt it. Right? Like more like this big tube, I would imagine. But anyway, if I find pictures, I will try to share them. But yeah, and how many millions of dollars are going into this? She estimated like over hundreds of million. So, yeah. And Raytheon's going to make a bunch of Raytheon's part of this. This is a big Raytheon project. Like, just what we need. Raytheon to have more wealth. Like, and this is, of course, the classic Turkey and Qatar and all these fucking Israel-aligned people in the Middle East. So, you know, Iraq with, like, our influence. Bad news. Anything else you wanted to say before I get out of here?
This is just so depressing.
Yep. Yes, it is. And talking about it is certainly why YouTube has demonetized our channel. So you can scan the QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, or links are always in the description below. But if you can't do that, just like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. How bad's this wall gonna be? Like, and is it practice for building walls here? That's the other thing I thought about. But otherwise, thanks for watching.
Good point.
Yep. So, but yeah, and that, you know, like, we're definitely building our surveillance border walls, I'm sure. Canada, you better look out, Canada. Canada, we're going to be putting that wall up any day now, Canada. So, but anyway, Chat, anything you had to add to this? Snow Himbo added pee pee poo poo. So, which is accurate. Accurate depiction of events. But yeah. Sure. Canada, you better. I did that. That was my fault. Collin.
Yes, sir.
Let me check Substacks. He's hanging out over there. But yeah, it was just one of these stories I felt like it's definitely going to be coming here at some point. All that shit's going to be here. But
Sure. Yeah.
anyway, you ready to get to our last one, which kind of fucking
I am.
coincides. But Palantir, Collin, everyone's favorite terrible Lord of the Rings reference and dirtbag company trying to spy on everyone for Israel. Well, turns out that they may be involved in the pager attack that happened not that long ago, that most of the countries in the world ruled a terrorist attack, right? You remember this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Isagan from the Dissident, Israel used Palantir technologies in pager terrorist attack in Lebanon. Pretty succinct. So, in September of 2024, Israel blew up booby-trapped pagers belonging to Hezbollah figures in public places in Lebanon, and it was also owned by civilians, like killing 12 people, including 2 children and 2 healthcare workers, and injuring 2,800 people. The attack was followed by another attack using explosives and walkie-talkies that killed 25 people and injured another 600. The AP reported that attacks wounded many civilians and that survivors are left with missing eyes, faces laced with scars, and hands with missing fingers. The United Nations at the time noted that the attacks constitute war crimes of murder, attacking civilians, and launching indiscriminate attacks, in addition to violating the right to life, adding that around 500 people suffered severe eye injuries, including a diplomat. Others suffered grave injuries to their faces, hands, and bodies, and that it is also a war crime to commit violence intended to spread terror among civilians, including to intimidate or deter them from supporting an adversary. A climate of fear now pervades everyday life in Lebanon. At the time, when asked about the attacks, former CIA Director Leon Panetta said, "I don't think there's any question that it's a form of terrorism." Now, a new book quietly reveals that Israel carried out the terrorist attack with the help of AI surveillance firm Palantir, led by Alex Karp and Peter Thiel. In the new biography of Palantir co-founder Alex Karp, The Philosopher in the Valley, Alex Karp, Palantir and the Rise of the Surveillance State, by New York Times journalist Michael Steinberger, he writes that prior to the genocide in Gaza, the Mossad had been using Palantir technology, adding that the Shin Bet and the IDF sought to obtain Palantir software in the wake of October 7th. He goes on to write that the demand of Palantir assistance was so great that the company dispatched a team of engineers from London to help get Israeli users online, adding Palantir ended up having to rent a second-floor building that housed its Tel Aviv office to accommodate the intelligence analysts who needed tutorials. What? Like, they rented a second floor of the building that housed its Tel Aviv office. The fuck? Revealing what Israel used the AI-powered software for, Michael Steinberger notes that software was used by the Israeli military in several raids in Gaza, and goes on to write that the company's technology was deployed by the Israelis during military operations in Lebanon in 2024 that decimated Hezbollah's top leadership, adding that it was also used in Operation Grim Beeper, in which hundreds of Hezbollah fighters were injured and maimed when their pagers and walkie-talkies exploded. The Israelis had booby-trapped the devices. And here is in the book, in addition to hostage extraction, the company's technology was deployed by the Israeli during military operations in Lebanon, right? So, Via the U.S. military's Project Maven, Palantir also helped repel large-scale Iranian missile attacks. So this is, again, Israel's just buying up Palantir stock, right? So Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur of the Situation and Human Rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, documented Palantir's role in the genocide in Gaza, noting in January 2024, Palantir announced a new strategic partnership with Israel and held a board meeting in Tel Aviv in solidarity. In April 2025, Palantir's chief executive officer responded to accusations that Palantir had killed Palestinian Gaza by saying mostly terrorists. That's true. Both incidents are indicative of executive-level knowledge and purpose vis-a-vis the unlawful use of force by Israel and failure to prevent such acts or withdraw involvement. Now it is revealed that the AI software was used in Israel's terrorist attack in Lebanon as well. In a recent interview, the former head of the Israeli Mossad, Yossi Cohen, revealed that Israel has similar booby-trapped and spy-manipulated equipment in all the countries you can imagine.
I'd like to repeat that because it sounds vaguely important.
Israel has similar booby-trapped and spy-manipulated equipment in all the countries you can imagine. So what does that mean, boys and girls? Like, what are you going to do about that? The fact that a company is influential as Palantir was involved in the terrorist attack makes these comments even more concerning. Do you see what we're alluding to? That this will be done here with that technology? Not that far a jump to make. Just saying. Care Bear, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny that the connection between the two stories is that, essentially, knowing Israel is that the stuff that, it's happening, it's been happening, but the stuff that they work on is eventually used here. So, who's to say that they will not put up a walled community or region if they're trying, sanction would be the wrong word in this case if it's someone here, but the idea still remains. Like, the idea that if you want to essentially off someone, you can use a pager in order to do it.
Yep.
So, I mean, you showed me that clip many years ago with that drone thing. Yep. So, that still gives me nightmares. So, it's here, folks.
We're boned.
Exactly. Couldn't say it better myself.
Just keep your eyes on a swivel out there, people. Like, they're going to get real scary real quick. So, talking about stories like this is why YouTube's demonetized us. You can scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Links are always in the description below. You can do that. Like and subscribe, and just share the video. That's like the least you could do. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Well, that was our last story this evening, Care Bear.
Yes, sir.
What do the people need to know for this next week? Do we know?
I don't think there's anything new that they already don't know.
Yeah, I think stuff's coming up. Let me look, see if I can find this. But yeah. Driving me Macy, I think Lindsey Graham has inflatable friends. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You get those at like Spencer's.
I mean, allegedly he has reasons.
Yeah.
But pays money for it,
right?
if you know what I mean. Allegedly.
Yep. Craziness. Well, stay tuned to our Twitter at Get Indie News. Also our Substack, which is linked in the description below. Find out updates, But I don't know, hit the bell on the channel. That's supposed to do things when we're live too, right? But you got anything else to add for the people?
Well, I'm subscribed and I don't get
right.
I don't always get so.
Yep. But check your channel every day. Make sure you get the dose of INN you need. But otherwise, I think that's it. So remember, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.